Welcome to the Nock on Archery podcast, where we bring all archers and bow hunters together from all walks of life with the goal to educate, empower, and inspire you to be better both in the field and on the range. Oh, you're sitting way back.
Why wouldn't I?
Dude,
I like to be comfortable.
you're the first guest to just kick it back. I need to have a recliner for this. Just remember the fist rule.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if that's what Rogan said, that's what goes. Same mics, so yep.
Oh, this is the same setup as him?
Well, I'm sure Jamie has a little bit higher end stuff.
Where's your Jamie?
I didn't turn on any of my. That's the Tesseract, the Nock on Tesseract right there. Yeah,
this loom cube thing.
Yeah,
hang on, let's see if I can figure it out.
Which
power?
Yeah, but that one might be the underneath.
That
boom.
That
see what happens.
That remote control was designed by trained monkeys. Look at that thing's so ugly,
dude. Looks like when they did the prototype, they stuck a bunch of colored thumbtacks on a piece of cardboard and said, "This is what a remote control should look like."
This right here, make this.
Yeah, DIY 1, DIY 2, jump. They literally have DIY 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then they have jump 3, jump 7, fade 3, fade 7, flash.
That's really complicated.
There's no one on earth.
Are we rolling right now?
Yeah, totally.
Well, we should be explaining what we're doing. We're reviewing the remote control for the.
They can see.
Oh
yeah, but I guess the listeners probably don't know. Is there another one?
Like 6 remotes back here.
Okay, let me see.
All of them as ugly and awful as the last one. There we go.
We're totally going.
Can we maybe you've never explored this on your podcast before, but you have a very like Monster Energy green thing going with your brand. What is the story with that?
No, Monster has a Nock on green thing going.
I should have known.
The green cans came out after Nock on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a little different. It's a little different hue, so you can get away with it. But
yeah, I think it's 702C.
Got it
from the Pantone.
Where did this color come from, though? Why is this your color?
Just because originally that color was the color of my favorite Nock, like an Aero Nock. So, yeah, the original like Easton see-through green S Nocks that were on like Super Slams, they were this color.
I see.
And yeah, that's where it started.
It suits you. I don't think. I mean, no, not knocking it.
I like green.
Yeah, no, I do too. I'm all about it.
I'm not really a blue fan, although blue has started to grow on me a little bit.
Yeah.
We've got some like most companies, you have like your pinnacle of apparel and what your brand wants to be.
Yeah.
And then as it goes further, you start looking at your own closet and you realize like, yeah, everyone else out there is asking for different colors for a reason, just because you want like some assortment in the closet. So now we've got a lot of different colors and kind of playoffs coming. We've got some really cool stuff coming that plays off things that I really liked during my teen years, which junior high teen years, which a lot of that's coming back, right? People making spins off everything that was cool during that era. So
also all fashion is cyclical.
Yep.
You'll get to be cool again.
Chris, introduce yourself before we get too far and talk a little bit about your background.
Okay.
Because I think that's going to be pretty cool for people to hear.
I mean, I should give a disclaimer here that I know almost nothing about archery. So if people tuned in for an archery podcast, this isn't it. Well, I mean, actually, I'll just ask some dumb questions. So
but you've hunted legit spots.
Yeah. I've definitely.
I mean, you've hunted some legit wilderness stuff, but you've never had formal training, which I think is cool.
Yeah, that's right. So I grew up in Idaho, northern Idaho, in a little town called Lewiston, and spent most of my childhood in the Sawtooths and mostly riding motorcycles. I'm a Powersports person, but always tagged along with my friends on their hunting trips in the fall, and spent a lot of time in the Frank Church Wilderness, which I talk about a lot. I think it's funny. Most people don't know about it. Like you live in the South or whatever, and you have no idea there's this like biggest wildlife preserve in America is up in Idaho and Montana, and you could backpack into it and not see anybody for 60 years if you really wanted to. So that's where I grew up.
The people that know about it are the people that have suffered there and don't want other people to know about it because it's still good.
It's an incredibly wild place. I mean, even, you can drive into just the outskirts of it and go into this little place called Yellow Pine, which is a really remote town outside of McCall that gets snowed in every winter. People hunker down and they stay there all winter long. They can't leave, and they get their supplies in before the snow hits, which is early. And then they stay there. And if you break your leg, if you don't have the money to get on a heli, you're going to spend the winter with a broken leg.
I'm going to splint that sucker up.
Yeah, exactly.
Peg leg for a little bit.
Peg leg it, yep. So, yeah, I grew up in Idaho, power sports enthusiast. When I was a kid, I always wanted to work like in the motorcycle business. That was always my dream. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. And
what'd you ride as a kid? Like, what was your go-to for the family?
Always Yamaha stuff. Actually, my parents didn't let me have a motorcycle. So when I was old enough, like 16 or so, I mowed enough lawns and I bought a bike and I towed it around on a like really crappy trailer behind my Jetta. So I was always a Yamaha guy, and I worked at a Yamaha dealership for a while. And bought a bike, got hurt a bunch. My parents hated it. And, they had no idea why I'd waste my time or money or broken limbs doing it. And I just told them I loved it. It's what I wanted to do. So I went to college at the University of Idaho, and I was just like committed to working in the action sports business. But the action sports business doesn't exist in Idaho, right? You can't like make a job out of it. So I knew I had to get to California, and just really random circumstance where I was going to go race this motorcycle race in Vegas, and I called Red Bull. I called the Red Bull office in Santa Monica, and I was like, hey, do you guys want to sponsor me?
What?
And they're
I
like,
haven't heard this.
Really? Yeah. So anyway, I just called the receptionist, literally the receptionist. I have no idea what that looked like at that time. And the person I talked to is like, no, we don't really do that. We'd be happy to get you some product. And then some guy called me, and he's like, hey, we have a collegiate brand ambassador marketing program at your school and schools across the country. He's like, is that something you'd be interested in? And I was like, yeah. And so I applied, and I got the job. And so I was a Red Bull student brand manager in 2004 and 5. And then it just completely changed my life. I went on to be one of Red Bull's first interns, and I worked at Laguna Seca in California and helped bring MotoGP back to America. And that just like the thing that I'd always wanted, action sport, power sport career, get out of Idaho. That was the pivot, and the rest is history. So
dang, dude.
Yeah, it was really fortuitous that I made that phone call.
That's freaking awesome. So you were just kind of had a dream, but had no idea how to hit it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But then did what, reached out.
Yeah.
to like someone calling in.
Yeah.
Which I know right now for a fact, there's a lot of people that are like, well, I've called Nock on and like said the same thing.
Yeah.
And, and honestly, a lot of times we're like, hey, we extend ourselves beyond what we should.
Yeah, of course.
With a lot of the, we do a lot of donation stuff. But we're like, just, I can give you advice. And a lot of times I refer them to an article that I wrote about like how to be a pro shooter.
Yeah.
But that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. It's fun.
And then like totally change like your college path, so to speak.
Yeah. I still graduated with a marketing and PR degree, and I was a terrible student. Like I'm fairly certain I graduated, but I'm not entirely certain. I've never really been like traditionally, the traditional path has never really worked out for me. I wasn't a good student. I don't kind of do the traditional, like, I don't know, job application type thing. Like, I don't know, my whole career and life has not really followed the traditional channels to get things done. It's worked for me in many ways. It's like I told you that story about Jocko last night, the email that I'd sent him. Just randomly inspired to send that guy an email one night. It didn't work out, but it changed my life. So we moved, my wife and I, then girlfriend, moved to California, worked at a racetrack. Then I worked at Cycle World Magazine. I ran motocross.com for a while. So a lot of power sports stuff. And then I worked for CrossFit Inc. back in like 2009 for about 4 years, and helped launch the CrossFit Games, and do mostly on the media side.
Yep.
And so I was really integrated in that, and then kind of made my way back to action sports and power sports.
When were you at CrossFit? Was Andy there then? Was he piloting then?
Yeah. So Andy and I bumped into each other a number of times early on in my time there. I don't think he would remember me if we ran into each other in the street, but like 2009, 2010.
Did he ever get you totally plastered, hammered, and then vanish?
No. I actually never really like partied with the HQ staff. Actually, that too is like another funny story. The CrossFit Journal used to be kind of a big thing back in the day for them, at least. And I was just on the Journal one day and I left a comment on an article. And the guy that ran the CrossFit Journal at the time randomly called me. I have no idea how he got my number, but he called me. I was in the airport on my way home in Seattle, and we started talking. He's like, "Hey, I see you're a journalist, photographer, media guy. What are you doing? Do you want to come work for CrossFit?" And I was like, "I guess that sounds fun." So then I like joined the CrossFit media team, and I did a bunch of ridiculous jobs. Some of them were amazing, and others were terrible. But that whole thing came together really randomly.
That's awesome.
One of my jobs one year for almost the entire summer was I watched every CrossFit video and I wrote a synopsis of it. And that was it. I wrote a 1-paragraph synopsis of the video that I watched, and that's all I did all day. But some days I'd only watch one video. So I'd do, 25 minutes of work. And then the rest of the day I didn't do anything. Like I'd go out and ride my bike, and it was so amazing.
Do you like to ride as well as like motocross?
I grew up racing motocross, and then I kind of, as I got older and fatter, I just transitioned into enduro and off-road, and like just got lazier. I like to sit down a lot more than I do stand up now. But yeah, I raced for quite a long time. I was never any good at it. I was terrible at it, but it was fun.
What was some of the cooler projects you've done
at Red Bull?
Yeah.
Just in general?
Yeah.
Well, Red Bull was incredible because it's the kind of organization where if you have a good idea, the company's got enough resources and willpower to make it happen, right? Mm-hmm. So like at some point in Red Bull's history, Felix Baumgartner went to them and said, "Hey, I want to jump out of an hot air balloon in outer space and parachute back to Earth." And they're like, "All right." So they did it. Some of the projects I got to work on, actually one thing that's happening right now, I don't know when you'll publish this, but Red Bull Rampage was a project that I helped lead for about 4 or 5 years. And if people don't know what that is, like you've probably seen it, but you don't know what it is. Just think really gnarly free ride mountain biking in the desert, in the Utah desert, guys jumping off cliffs and stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody's seen it.
Yeah.
I say it's probably the most ubiquitous.
How many people actually died during the filming of those videos, dude?
Nobody's ever died at Rampage, but it is very dangerous.
They're that good.
Yeah.
Dude.
But people do die in action sports.
They die after they leave the Rampage event.
after the TV's turned off. Now, Rampage is interesting because it's extremely dangerous, but it's 15 to 21 of the best riders on the planet, and they spend a week plus building their course, building their line, and spend multiple days practicing. And then the culmination of it is event day where they get to do 2 runs. But they've really baked it out like up till that point. But the really cool part about Rampage that most people don't know about is, so we'll be in the desert for 2 weeks, and people will be building their lines. And then about 3 days from the event, they'll start testing, right? And so it's kind of like, it's very much like a pot of water coming to boil, doesn't make much noise. And then right at the moment before it boils, it starts sounding really crazy. And like the first time, like on a Wednesday, when people start guinea pigging their lines, you hear their tires rolling over the like really hard packed sand. And it sounds like a drone actually. And you hear the first couple big jumps, and you always know people stuck it because the diggers and the people watching will smack their shovels on the ground, and it makes this like really weird reverberating noise. I'll never forget that. It's like you hear kind of like a droney noise, and then you hear shovel smacking the ground, and then it goes back to silence and somebody's just spraying water.
I feel like I hear that whenever I'm taking my bike to my stand, when the first frost of the year starts hitting, mm-hmm. and it's like a couple millimeters of frost on like what was mud.
Yeah.
Crinkly,
crackly.
Yeah. And a lot of times your treads are there from the day before, but then they freeze, and it just makes that sound kind of like, well, I remember this sound too from being a little kid in Mississippi. I mean, my life kind of looked a lot like those kids on Stand By Me, like once they like went on their little mission.
Oh yeah.
Like that, because I grew up in the Mississippi Delta. So I had, you know, a Huffy bike with like a yellow tire and a red tire, you know, because it was probably the only used tires, you know, after I burned them off from learning how to do skids, you know. And so I would just be, you know, I would ride everywhere on this thing. And the tar, like wherever they would seal the roads down in Mississippi, you know, I don't know what they would seal it with, but the roads would get so hot that they would bubble. And there'd be and it would sound like you were driving over like bubble wrap.
Yeah, right.
But it was like little tar things. And so all my t-shirts had just like, if I had, I had just straight up just splattered tar for like this wide all the way up the back. And I'd always wear my hat backwards so that the tar didn't get in my hair, because they would take it out with that tar cleaner that they use on cars.
Oh, right.
And I remember hating that smell.
So this was before the phase in the photo you showed me last night, where you're in a cowboy hat and a Wrangler button down.
Yeah, this was just straight up. Just a ratty, like trailer park looking kid on like a Huffy with like one mag wheel and one spoke wheel.
Oh, you had to have the mags. You didn't have the mags.
Dude, I only had one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I like found it somewhere and put a tire on it.
Nice.
So yeah, that was pretty much what I would do. Cruise around, do that, cause havoc with, you know, I had a BB gun that I had like strapped on me. I had like probably a Red Ryder. I would normally have that, a couple fireworks if I could get a hold of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would like shoot turtles. Shoot
with your BB gun?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Any turtle head that popped up on a bridge I was riding over, like it would get popped.
We talking about a single action BB gun, or like a pump style? Do you ever have the pump one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got in a lot of trouble with the pump one, dude.
Yeah. Did you ever over pump it?
Yeah, I over pumped it and then ended up shooting a person with it. Oh. Like accidentally, but it was a pretty bad deal.
Yeah.
I thought if I pumped, well, I remember I actually sold all my Halloween candy. I like pawned it off. I waited till all the Halloween candy was like ran out for my friends, and then I set up like a little TV tray at the end of my driveway.
Smart.
And just sold all the Halloween candy that I took from neighbors.
Per piece, or was it per pound? Or
it was per piece. Yeah, and there was massive inflation.
That's right.
And and I ended up saving up and buying that Powerline 880, which, do you remember that one?
No.
It had
pump
like
action.
Yeah, it had like the square handle down here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I mean, it was the legit one. It wasn't the one with like the fake wood.
Yeah, stock.
One.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Yeah, that one was kind of, didn't have the power of the Powerline 880. But yeah, when I got that thing, my dad set up some bales of hay in the backyard. And I like shook up a can and put it on top. And I thought, if I pump this thing 100 times when I shoot this can, like I was envisioning like a Hollywood explosion happening.
Putting Tannerite on a propane tank or something.
Yeah. Listen, thank God there wasn't Tannerite when John Dudley was freaking 10 to 13. Because I know I wouldn't be here, and if I was, I would look like Darth Vader at the end of freaking Return of the Jedi. Like that's what I would
face and
that's what I would look like. But I pumped this thing 100 times. I remember counting it down. I didn't realize there's like a pressure release valve to where
everything past like 7 was
everything past 10 is irrelevant. Yeah. So I'm just like pumping this thing, and then I lined up on this can and shot, and like nothing happened.
Oh really?
It was very anticlimactic, but then like all of our backyards were in a line. You know, we were in a neighborhood, and then like 5 yards down, I could just see this like big maple tree. It was like this time of the year because it had a lot of colors, and I could see it like, it was like shaking at the very top of it. It was a big ass tree. And there was like leaves like coming out. And I was like, I remember looking down there like, holy crap, look at all those leaves like coming out of the tree. And like, it was like shaking over here and like shaking over here and shaking over here. And then this like girl drops out.
Oh no.
She was climbing the tree.
Oh my God. And you shot her.
Yeah. And so like, then the dad comes out and, and I shot her in the leg, but it didn't penetrate, but it like, she thought she had like a bee sting or something. She
still fell out of the tree though.
Yeah. Right. And so he like looks down and hears this like I'll guarantee you I had shaved sides with like vanilla ice stripes cut on the side, and I had this long straight like mullet, dude. And I'm sitting there with this BB gun, just like, probably like a Motley Crue t-shirt, just looking over the top of the fences. And so he saw me there, dude. He knew where that thing, he put it all together real fast as a dad. And so I
catch a whooping.
Yeah, I got whipped bad and got that gun taken away, and it made a new appearance later on. That's a different story, but
she's probably telling the same story right now about how some asshole that 5 houses away shot her with a BB gun when she was a kid.
Best case scenario is it hasn't ruined her life, and like, she's sitting there saying somewhere in the world this, my whole life has been changed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, now you guys are married. And
she sees a BB gun. She's just like, oh my God. Motley Crue comes on. She freaks out. Like, that would be the worst.
Anybody with a non-ironic mullet, she sees you.
Yeah. Good grief. Yeah, just thinking if there was Tannerite when I grew up.
Be a problem.
Yeah, that would have been horrible for the whole planet.
Could you detonate Tannerite, or could you strike Tannerite with like a bow head or an arrowhead and have it like ignite? Probably could. You got to shoot with a gun, right?
Well, you would need,
because you have to have a little. I mean, we should investigate this.
Say that. Well, like what you would need is a low impact and explosive to where you could put a little of that on there that would then cause enough pressure to then make the Tannerite go on. What I will say is I did rig up a lot of. I shouldn't say that. Yeah.
Here's how to do
I'm
it
backing up
at home.
Yeah. I know, like, I figured out how to shoot like shotgun shells with my bow and like all that stuff.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not even talking about it.
Huh. Okay.
I'll change subjects. So there was something you were saying about, I didn't want to interrupt you when you were talking about when you first grew up on your motorcycle. I'm trying to think what you said, but it totally hit home with me. Gosh, I should have wrote it down.
Mowed yards until I could buy it, towed it behind my
100%.
crappy Jetta.
Yeah. Well, dude, so that's perfect. So my dad, obviously, I was an idiot growing up. I mean, you can tell the trouble I got into with a BB gun.
Yeah.
So you could imagine, like, I never...
Things got exponentially
honestly,
worse.
part of why I'm so excited about like why we're actually together here, which is kind of a little bit of a secret still, but I was never allowed to have a go-kart. I was never allowed to have a 4-wheeler. Well, then a 3-wheeler.
Right. Yeah, which is probably a good thing you didn't have a 3-wheeler.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I would have jumped that thing. I would have probably lit it on fire and ghost rode it through all 6 backyards behind her house. Like that's the kind of stuff I would have done. But so when I turned 16, like my mom and my dad both said, if you want a motorcycle, you can get one when you have a license. So when I turned old enough to drive, I had saved mowing yards, selling candy.
Mowing yards is the best job ever, by the way. When you're a young guy.
Dude,
$20, mow a yard.
I can't believe what it costs to mow a yard right now. Like I'm looking at people thinking, holy crap, if I was making this kind of money to mow a yard, like that would be my business as a junior high kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of felt like if I had to do it all again, like if Harry wasn't in a ton of sports and stuff like that, it's almost like as a parent, if you want to teach him how to have a really good business model, buy him a good lawnmower that's dependable.
Yep.
And just be like, go to every neighbor within driving distance of this place and tell them that you'll cut their grass, every Friday.
Yep.
Like you could make $50 per day as a kid in an hour, right?
You'd be pumped. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be freaking, and I would have totally done it. But I ended up saving up I think it was like $2,100. And I got my license and had my mom drop me off at a motorcycle dealer. They're
really?
Actually the Oakley dealer because I like those frog skins.
Yeah.
You got froggies on. Like razors, I think, were like cool then.
Yeah.
But I went in there and just said, I want a motorcycle. I've got like $2,200.
Yeah.
And there was I think it was like an FZR 400 Yamaha.
Oh, you want a street bike?
Yeah, I just wanted a motorcycle,
Yeah.
and obviously a crotch rocket was like the cooler thing.
Sure.
So, yeah, it was like a white one with the red and black. You know, it looked like a ZX9, but it like had like a 400 in it. So it's pretty much. So I remember like
it was like early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I go, hey man, yeah, I'll take it. You know, and I like bought this thing.
Cash.
and I remember like going out in the driveway, and my mom gave me a lot of rope.
Yeah.
All like obviously. And she's just like, "Are you good?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll meet you at the house." And so like when the dude like brought it out and stuff and like gave me the keys, I said, "Can you give me a quick rundown on like how to drive this thing?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." He said, "It's easy, 1 down, 5 up." And so I like kind of started it, and I kind of like revved it, and I'm just like, "Can you tell me what that means?" And he's like,
"Oh boy."
He goes, "Well, your neutral's between first and second." And I'm like, "How does that work?" And he just like turned the bike off.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Have you ever ridden a motorcycle?" I go, "I was never allowed to ride one until I turned 16, and that's today."
And I got this money.
And the guy's just like, "Dude." So he like took me in the back and put me on like an old like Jazz, like a Yamaha Jazz.
Yeah.
And just like
Showed you the ropes.
Showed me the ropes.
What a saint. That guy.
Yeah.
Shout out to whoever that is. If he's still alive.
And so, and honestly, I always wanted like, you know, like razors. And I had enough money. I told him like, I really want some razors with like an iridium lens.
Yeah.
And so like when I bought that, he's like, "I'll throw in a pair of razors with an iridium lens." So
No way.
I had no helmet.
Yeah.
I had these brand new freaking Oakleys, and probably a Mohawk. Like if I look back, I probably had a Mohawk. And well, it was more of a Tony Hawk Mohawk. It was just a lot of bangs and everything that was just like laid back. And I just freaking got on that sucker and
just went,
you know, killed it a few times getting out of the parking lot. And
is
then,
this in Mississippi, or were you in Chicago by then?
It was northern Chicago. Yeah.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
up.
okay.
It was up, but it was actually the motorcycle dealership was in McHenry, Illinois.
So you could ride it about 1.5 months out of the year, basically. Everything else too cold.
No, dude, I freaking
I
ran that. I was the idiot where like when there was salt on the roads and like, I was the dude that was like, you know, hitting like little patches of ice and people looking at you like, "Why are you riding?" Yeah, I'd be in my whole Carhartt thing, like what I poured concrete in. I'd be in like that whole deal. And the only time I'd wear a helmet is if it was so cold that my face got frostbite. Then I would do it.
Yeah.
But then like a lot of my friends, because I kind of made friends with a lot of the varsity players as like a freshman, sophomore. So a lot of my original friends on the football team were like graduating or seniors, and then they graduated. And as soon as they graduated, most of my better friends all like got construction jobs like that. Yeah. So they had money for the first time.
Right.
And that was the year the CBR 600s came out, and those were like the bikes.
The move, yeah.
And there was like 3 or 4 colors. You know, there was like 3 or 4 colors CBR 600s. And when I became a senior, I rode every day with my friends, which they all had CBR 600s, and I still had this 400. But then when I graduated, I ended up getting they did like a limited edition CBR 600 in the Pepsi colors.
Oh wow!
So red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
And so I got that thing and like put a pipe on it,
Stoked.
Dropped a sprocket in the front, and then just went
pissed everybody off.
Yeah, just full idiot,
full hooligan.
Yeah, I had a white Camaro with like, remember those like when neon lights first came out? I had like neon lights underneath my Camaro.
Ground.
Yeah. And I mean, I worked a lot. Yeah. I freaking, I practice, and if I wanted something, I found a job. So I really wanted a cool sound system in my Camaro. So I worked for this company called, gosh, I forget what it was. It was like Detail something. They were in Crystal Lake, Illinois. And so every weekend I would go and detail cars and freaking just clean up from like the sawdust where they were making like sub boxes.
Okay.
And they were like one of the biggest Clarion dealers.
Mm-hmm.
So then I ended up like, a rep came in and I told him like I wanted this system in my Camaro. Mm-hmm. So he ended up like giving me a price, and I ended up doing yard work for the owner of the business.
To pay for it?
Yeah, I did yard work. Like after they closed, I'd go and do yard work.
Yep.
And I mean like landscaping stuff, which I really hate.
Yes.
And he pretty much fronted me to put like a full system in there. And then so I started like going to some of these like
shows?
Freaking car shows.
Yeah.
And I remember like, you know, you just literally play your, I think my go-to song for, because all they measured was decibels, not clarity.
Yeah, right.
So I think Techmaster PEB was like my tape.
The jam.
Yeah, it was, because CDs weren't out yet.
Right.
So it was like tape.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I could like get a ribbon with those, but that was my rig. And then that crotch rocket, and then just.
Still got those ribbons around anywhere?
I don't know. God, that was.
Yeah.
What a freaking time. And then somehow in the middle of all that, I like became an archer.
Yeah. And then
because I was doing all that and like just like kind of like living a double life of that was my life all the time. But as soon as Thanksgiving hit and we were able to go down to our family place in Mississippi, it was freaking real tree camo and, you know, my Golden Eagle bow, and I was just like a full-blown wood rat, you know, for like 7 days. And then if we'd go back for Christmas, we'd go back down to Mississippi. Yeah. Same. And I had to clean up all that because like people have probably watched a podcast with my uncle Kenny, and then my grandpa, who we called Papa, was from, you know, a bunch of brothers, all of them like, you know, Korean War type dudes, Depression era.
Yeah.
So like,
tough.
Yeah. Me showing up with like, you know, Vanilla Ice shaved sides and like,
wasn't going to fly.
No, if I went and had any of that, they just took me right to the barber and it just went high and tight, just like that. And they're like, if you're hunting here, this is what you have. So it would just be like a totally different person. So it's, and then somehow archery led me completely away from that life of being a total freaking idiot. But dude, I remember cutting grass to get my first motorcycle. Yeah. And now
they didn't have compound bows back then, right? It was all recurve when you were young?
Compounds had started. Yeah. And, and actually the first bow I ever bought myself was actually a PSE, which is really cool. My dad had a PSE that looked way cooler than what I had, because I think I had a recurve or like a really like dumb round wheel bow. And I always thought his was way cooler. I could never pull it back. But I could pull it back with my feet. So I'd actually shoot it in the backyard. Like when he would be at work, I'd go get his bow out of the case and I would shoot it like a crossbow with my legs.
What?
Yeah, I'd sit on my butt and like hold the riser with both my feet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and I'd just tip it upside down and just like literally like make a crossbow out of my legs.
That's funny. That's actually a good idea.
Yeah. That's how I did it. And you
should build like a really big bow with like a 200-pound draw, right? It's called a draw. Like a 200-pound draw. And like the bigger your deadlift is, the bigger arrow you can shoot like a giant spear.
You could.
Why wouldn't you make that?
It'd be a catapult at that point, kind of like one of those ones from it'd be from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and then you get like strongman in, and you make them like a 500-pound draw or a 1,000-pound draw, and just see how big of a spear they can shoot with their legs. That'd be kind of cool.
And actually, Bert Soren is like, talk to me. He's like, I've got this guy who wants like a 200. I'm like, Bert, the problem is when those fail, and it's not like the limbs are gonna fail, but it's like
the whole thing's just gonna blow up.
Yeah, right? It's like the bearings. It's like an axle. Yeah, it's like. Even the material, like, you know, if somehow that string gets nicked and you pull it back and it's got that much load and it just blows, it's like everybody in the vicinity of that thing is Because I've seen like, we used to, in the test labs, you have to shoot stuff to failure.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been around stuff like bows that truly detonate, which I have.
What happens?
It's catastrophic.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Because the pieces swing around from the string and the graphite blow.
Oh, yeah. 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 There's, some stuff I can't talk about just because I've seen stuff happen that, ended up like in legal stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen peep sights, come out of strings, just go right through people's eyeballs and just all the way into the back of their head. Like,
wow.
Yeah. That's a projectile.
That's really what the limiting factor is for the draw.
Safety.
Okay.
Yeah. In my opinion, especially if it's a friend, like if someone's like, hey, we want to do this, I'm like, that's not smart.
Mm-hmm. But how much, incremental steps of draw weight, how much does it really impact the velocity of the arrow and like its effectiveness? Like if you could have a 200-pound draw, would that even really be useful anywhere?
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of the energy that crossbows generate is because the power stroke's shorter, but they're able to actually have more speed because the poundage is so high.
Okay.
So if the poundage was as high as it is, but had a power stroke like mine, they would be like blistering fast. But obviously it's a matter of like pulling them back. Not, with that much load, like not twisting them off the cams and stuff like that. So it just kind of comes down to safety. But as a rule of thumb, normally it's about 10 feet per second more per 10 pounds that you'll shoot.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 to 10, just depending on the efficiency of the cam.
Right.
So it's not like you honestly don't get that much, but you definitely get some.
But ultimately, at some point, there's a diminishing returns there, right? Where like the velocity is high enough to kill an elk, but any higher, like you're just piercing its skin faster, not really doing anything useful. I'm not an expert in this, so I'm asking dumb questions.
Yeah, you could use like a bigger cut broadhead to where you're going to be able to get like.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
You're going to be able to force a larger devastation through it type thing, or the ability to like not have to hit them in a soft spot to where you can like because like I'm to the point where if it's a whitetail or smaller, I can kind of like break through anything at my draw length and my poundage.
Right.
But like once you get to an elk, it's like, okay.
Yeah, their bones are really dense.
Yeah, an elk or even like the forearm of a black bear, it's like it doesn't matter if you're shooting a fixed blade head. It's not going through some of that stuff.
Right.
Like, I've shot 1 million carcasses and everything. It's just like there comes a point where it's like you're not going to get through it. So just avoid it.
When we build our 500-pound draw deadlift dual foot bow, and we get Eddie Hall here or whatever, some strongman, we're going to destroy some stuff.
Okay.
We'll take an elephant down.
Well, you could do that with a regular compound, but it'd be.
I just tried to think of something bigger than an elephant. We'll take a whale down, just something really big.
I think take a structure down.
Yeah, there you go.
I think it'd be cooler to not like shoot through like an animal, but like try to like
knock an old tower of some sort down.
Yeah, imagine being able to shoot through a shipping container.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
All right.
I think if you tipped a shipping container up on its top, open the doors, fill it with ballistic gel, close the doors, let it dry up, tip it back down, and just see how much penetration this human catapult
that'd be cool
crossbow thing could get.
Yeah. When you have some free time, work on this project. I know
we have gone down the biggest rat hole, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's get on the topic.
Yeah,
the
topic at
because through all of your awesomeness of what you've done, you've somehow came into a field that I really was lucky to be brought into before it before it's launched. And you were talking to me about this, and you showed me, and you said, we're literally gonna like kind of recreate a new method for a vehicle that's purposeful for everyone outdoors, but also for someone like you that just freaking loves to ride and stuff like that. And you met me somewhere, and you said, okay, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you this thing. When I saw the pictures, I had like pictured one thing in my mind. The picture looked like this.
Yeah.
but I kind of pictured it at a much different scale.
You thought it was going to be smaller, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But then when you showed up, I was like, damn. And you came to a Black Rifle event where I had a bunch of friends there. And I guess to make a long story short, it was hard having everybody keep their mouths quiet.
Yeah.
But everybody rode it, and everyone's like, dude, I want one of these so bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, so Vulcan, E Powersports is the company that I work for. I've been there about a year. We've been in business a little over a year, so I've been there almost the entire time. And we're committed to making electric powersports equipment, motorcycles, side-by-sides, and anything else we can dream up that sounds like fun. The founders, when they started this project a while back, I think they got a nice little stroke of genius where they recalled the fun elements of the fat tire motorcycle craze and the fat tire, three-wheeler craze that you almost got caught up in, probably would have killed you. But like the real cool nostalgic element to a fat tire motorcycle, turns out they're actually really functional too, because you can run them with really low tire pressure, makes it really easy to go through sand and over rocks and that kind of thing. So like it's dual purpose. They look fun and kind of quirky and unique, and they're actually really useful.
Yep.
So our first product is called the Grunt, and they are just starting to ship now. And it's an electric motorcycle with fat tires, low seat, and the purpose of it is to build a vehicle that's useful and fun. That's essentially as useful as it is fun to ride. So like we wanted to build something that farmers and ranchers might want to use to get around their property, something that a hunter might want to use to pull a deer out of the wilderness, and then for people maybe like me that are just into camping, backcountry, overlanding, that kind of thing, like take it along, nice little camping rig, go out and cruise around the territory and check things out, go fishing. We've got all these accessories planned that will help people, facilitate fishing trips and hunting trips and that kind of thing. And I think that if you've ever, regardless of how you feel about electric vehicles, if you've ever gotten in a Tesla and taken a ride in a Tesla, the power is really impressive. Like the way that the power is applied through the wheels and just the way that it rolls on, like electric is kind of undeniable in the way that it delivers power. And so we're in a unique position where, we're making electric power sports equipment for people who are probably typically really ingrained in the combustion engine world. And, my position is just as soon as we give them an experience with one, they'll see the light of day, that it is a lot of fun and it's a great alternative. And so we're building and shipping motorcycles right now. Our future plans include a couple of side-by-sides, the Stag and the Beast. The Stag will be next.
Yeah, that thing looks so
It's going to be rad, yeah.
I can't wait.
And we actually have our first prototype will be done here in the next week or two, and I'll get a little walk around of it and get to drive it and do it and kind of start to test it. So that's going really well. And I think the Grunt will just continue to improve, and we'll look to people like you who really put it to use in real world scenarios to give us honest feedback. Like, hey, these are the things that I would want to see improved in model years. And yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I've been using it. The first one I saw was in March.
Was it that long ago? Was
it April?
I think it was April when we met in San Antonio.
Yeah, so that was April. We first started talking in February, I think. Yeah. And then I saw the first one in April, and I've been I was wanting it so bad, because I'm like, man, I could use it here. I wanted it at the tax.
Yeah.
Because honestly, at the tax, I could have drove that thing to every target.
Yeah.
I could have buzzed around and saw everybody on the range, and it would have been freaking perfect. But what's awesome about it is, or what I should say is, for a lot of the listeners, they know that I've ridden bikes. I've pedaled bikes for hunting situations for probably 15 or 20 years.
Yep.
And really got into the E side of things, probably at least 10 years ago. Jim Felt made an electric bike for me.
Oh, cool.
And I've been riding that forever. But there's limitations with bikes.
Yeah.
You know, the bad thing about bikes is like, if you go through CRP, you get grass in the sprockets. It's like, it's not shifting. Like as soon as the little, tension wheel, you're just totally screwed. Drive it. If it's dewy in the morning and the dew gets on the brakes, it's just like
squeaky.
Yeah. Just like, like through
like alcohol.
Yeah. Through the whole like frost, frosty ground where it echoes like 7 neighbors long. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you're limited on, kind of the amount of gear you can take on there too.
Yep.
But with this thing, I mean, I've had it, I got the first official one and took it out west. Well, no, it was delivered to Utah and I picked it up. So, I was able to have that thing in like 4 different Western states and it was freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. And then now I've like come back home and it's like whitetail time. So, for me, buzzing around the farm to like check if the combine needs to come yet, checking cameras. It's got a trailer. You can get a hitch for it. Yep. You can put a trailer on it. You can haul, I can take out probably on that trailer. I could take out enough for like 4 stands worth of sticks and stands, strap them down on there. No problem packing out like if it's legal. How does it end up like going? Is it like for legality, it's non-motorized, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a street legal vehicle. You couldn't, I don't think you could register it as a street legal vehicle in any state. That's actually the number one question we get.
Yeah.
It's very complicated, state by state to build a vehicle that, you can title or that you can register everywhere. So it's off-road only. And our original intention was that people would use this on, in public lands and on the property that they own, that kind of thing. But we certainly get a lot of requests for it to be street legal. Yeah,
I think it suits a better purpose the way you intended it.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and it'd also be more expensive if it was street legal, and it would be. It would definitely be a completely different thing.
Yeah, it's definitely much quieter. I talked about this just last week. I pulled all my stuff back, bike included, and I kind of put everything in the front yard and was just going to take a couple hours and pressure wash.
Yeah.
The trailer, all my gear, the bike, like I was going to just clean everything, right? I mean, anyone who's done a Western hunt knows, like when you get back, you got to lay everything out and you got to organize and you got to clean.
Yeah.
And just power washing, like, honestly, like my flash shelter, my backpack covers, all of them had like, blood in them and stuff like that. So, and I had everything laid out, went to do it, freaking could not get my dang pressure washer to start.
Oh yeah.
And I was, and so then, I had a buddy of mine with me. I said, hey, go get some like, ether. Maybe we just need to get this. And I said, get a new spark plug, so we kind of like went through the normal things like you do on every small engine that won't freaking start.
Yep.
And then in the end, 2 hours later, he goes, do you want me just to go get my electric one? And I go, yeah, just go get that freaking thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't I was like, we can get this thing to start. Like once you've invested 50 to 100 pulls into something, I'm going to get this. Yeah, I'm going to get this thing to start.
Yeah.
And so then, he comes and like plugs in. I didn't even know they made electric pressure washers for some reason. And then he's just like, okay, we turn the hose on. He's just like, zzz, and I'm like,
it's pretty quiet. And
and I'm just like, what the? And honestly, I recently, I didn't want to do it, but couldn't get my gas freaking limb cutter to work.
Yep.
My buddy's like, you want to borrow mine? I go, yeah, let me just come get it. And it's like a DeWalt one.
Yeah.
And I go, seriously, dude? And he goes, yeah, it's got more torque than your freaking steel. He's like, go try it. And electric chainsaws are ridiculously good.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, it like became obvious to me. And I remember, I honestly remember when I had my first side-by-side was a Yamaha Rhino. And I remember I hooked it up to someone's like bad boy buggy because he was telling me like, he's like, with electric, dude, I have so much more torque. And I'm like, I'll pull that thing around like nothing. And so I hooked up to him. And like, if you start him out, like mash the gas at the same time, you're not beating an electric vehicle. No. It's just like instant full torque.
It's funny because people don't know, or people don't understand that, like you can't really use the term horsepower as it relates to electric vehicles. It's all about torque.
Yeah.
And, we have a dyno in our shop now, and we would do dyno tests of our motorcycles, which is really standard for the Powersports business. And I remember the first dyno run, the horsepower numbers kind of came back unimpressive. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I saw the torque numbers, and it was like the same as like a 600cc street bike. And I was like, whoa. I mean, it was really high. And when, like I said, the first time you ride in a Tesla, you have no idea that it has maybe it's got a quarter of the horsepower of a Corvette, but it's just as fast.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's just a torque monster.
Yeah. I remember, I actually remember when Elon first went on Rogan's podcast, because Joe told me he was coming on, and then he told me, "Oh, great! Now you're breaking my little."
Go on.
So
this will be really pleasant to hear at home too.
Yeah,
hang on, let's
leave it off. Yeah, leave it off. It's because you spun around so much.
I'm in the super relaxed mode here.
Torqued your wire too far.
Yeah,
I think.
sorry.
Pull some slack out. But he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna end up getting a Tesla now."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I told him I would buy one, so he said, I'm just gonna buy one. Mm-hmm. And Joe has nice cars.
Yeah, lots of them.
Yeah, and so he freaking had that thing a couple days, and he called me. He's like, "This thing is freaking awesome."
Yeah, and
I'm like, "What? Seriously?" And he's like, "Dude," and I ended up going there like a month or so later, and so he had got Ludicrous Mode, and we were at this stop, we came up and he was kind of like mashing it. I'm like, that's crazy. He's like, he goes, do you want to feel Ludicrous Mode? And I go, yeah, sure. That's cool. And he's like, all right. He goes, at this next light, I'll do it. And so like we go up and he like programs it or whatever. And then we start talking and, we're just having a discussion about whatever. And so me, typical like ADD Dudley, forgot about the fact that like this is ludicrous time. Yeah. So like I'm talking, he's just like green light, and I just like in my mind I was just like, okay, whatever. Yeah. And dude, he freaking stomped it, and I remember this instant feeling of like my stomach felt like it went through my spine and like was laying in the seat behind me, and I like instantly got like kind of sick because it's like all the blood just like went out of my body into the back seat somehow.
Yeah, you feel like you're shot out of a cannon.
Yeah. Or faster. Yeah, I feel like a cannon, at least you can like see that you're like going out of it, whereas that thing, it's like you don't realize, and being on a jet or nothing compares to like that thing. It would be like, well, did you ever do the rocket chairs at Vegas?
No.
I don't do those kind of things. Those hamster balls on the freaking slingshots.
Yeah.
I did those, and those have a lot of G-forces too, but like not even close.
But it takes a while to get to it, right? Like
you're in this hamster cage. There's a magnet holding it to the ground, and a crane takes the freaking cables, stretches it up to like the top of the building. And then, like, as it gets really tense, the cage just, like, rocks back to where you're just pointing straight up between these two, like, cranes.
No.
And then, like, some stoner that's there, he just like
pulls the switch.
Yeah, he just goes, later, dudes, and freaking hits this thing and, like, lets the magnet go. And you're just, you're, like, in a 10-story slingshot is what you're in. But I feel like it had more G's than that. Yeah. And I wasn't used to it. But, with these things, that's what it's like. You got instant power.
Yeah. You can do a lot of things with electric motors that you can't do with a standard combustion engine too. Like one thing that we recently built into the Grunt was a thing we call it hill hold. that essentially locks the motor. So if you go uphill and you stop, it doesn't freewheel. You wouldn't roll backwards. It locks because it's got magnets on the inside of the motor. And so it locks on a hill, right? And you wouldn't be able to do that with a combustion engine. And so every time you move forward a little bit, it locks. You can't roll back. There's a million different features in an electrical system that you couldn't do in a traditional combustion engine. And we're just like barely scratching the surface of what's capable of those things now.
I feel like, I definitely feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg of like, I think there'll constantly be upgrades or like, updates that can change things. But one of the things that's awesome is like, the Grunt, you can put 2 batteries in there. Mm-hmm. So, it depending on the mode you're in, when you first turn the bike on, you kind of wait about 5 seconds. Then you hold down one of the buttons that, there's an LED, pretty much like an LED speedometer, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And you'll toggle through, you hold it down for 5 seconds and all of a sudden it'll put it in like, stroll mode.
Yep.
And then you can push the button again, you go into the next mode, or then, you can go into the next mode. Each one has the ability to go faster, have more torque.
Yep.
And, or, if you're somewhere trying to preserve battery, but you're just wanting to slink around slow, just stay in stroll. Yep. And it's like, you're just going to kind of buzz around. But if you're somewhere where you're on a steep incline to start out, you would, need to put it in.
Yeah. Explorer Sport. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We wanted to give people a wide variety of, we know that the thing will be used in a lot of different occasions. And so, let's say you're a farm owner and you got a lot of acreage and you want to just kind of go check on sprinklers or something like that. Stroll mode, our slowest of the modes, preserves battery the best, so you'll get the longest distance out of that. And then Explore mode is a little higher torque and power, and then Sport mode's full power, full torque, full everything. And we just wanted to make sure that there was enough variety in the initial offering. The cool part about having the electrical system that we have, though, is that eventually, like you said, like firmware updates will allow consumers to potentially program the bike for themselves or choose their own settings. Like we can unlock a lot of features in that thing that you couldn't otherwise, because like traditional motorcycle with like its injection mapping and that kind of thing, like there's kind of some parameters you have to stay within.
Yep.
But for electric, you can play with a lot of different variables. So,
what's the towing weight?
So you can tow 750 pounds.
Boom. That's an elk, people.
Yeah, that's an elk.
And a full camp setup.
Yep. You can put about 400 pounds of rider plus gear on the seat. So if you had like a really heavy backpack or something like that, you could just put it on your rack behind you. And so
2 of us rode on.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, me and Andy rode around together on one, because I had it in Montana. We used it, and honestly, it was hard to keep Andy off of it. And I kept saying like, "Hey, it's not out yet. Like, don't show it." But yeah, he was buzzing around on that thing all the time. And then, if I wanted to ride it and he wanted to ride it, I'd be like, well, you're getting on the back. So
I wish there was a photo of you and Andy riding 2 up.
There is on that phone over there.
Yeah.
That's cool. Andy was on the back of that thing quite often when we were buzzing around.
We'll have to get him one. I like Andy a lot. He's a good dude.
And then
actually, what's funny is my only memory of Andy from my CrossFit days was like he was just a total dick to me one time. I think it was at the games. And I was like, man, I hate that guy. And then, and I don't know what it was about. It probably wasn't anything that big of a deal. But then I like ran into him subsequent times. And I'm like, this guy's nothing like the guy that I just ran into. I don't know what happened back there.
Well, he does, like, the thing is, he does that.
Yeah.
And he never like lets people know that was, that he like that's a game. Mm-hmm. But he never reveals that he's not being serious.
Right.
So like it gets to the point where people are really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They're like,
but he knows he's doing
is this guy going to kill me? And I'm like, he's not going to kill you.
He's just testing you.
Yeah. He's just like, he's waiting, and I don't know if that like comes from his era of the seals, but some of them are, they're hard on each other and they play that game. Sure. So yeah, he's super dry and like super straightforward, but yeah, he really liked it. And then the Black Rifle guys loved it. Logan Stark was riding on the back, or I was riding. I don't know if I was on the back. I might have been on the back with Logan. But yeah, everybody was cruising around like 2 at a time. No problems whatsoever. But what's cool is you can actually, it's not that heavy. When you see it, you would think that it would be heavier than what it is.
Well, it's got a really low, the weight is really low slung in the chassis. So you're like on a traditional like motocross bike, the top of the engine's really high, and the weight of the bike is actually kind of high in the center of gravity. And with the Grunt, like we wanted to put as much weight as low as possible with a low seat height, so that if you got into a position where you had to put a foot down or something like that, it was really manageable. The way the batteries sit in there make that weight really low. I mean, it's the volume weight, I think it's 330 pounds total with a battery in it, and which is a little on the heavier side, but it feels extremely light.
Yeah, it doesn't feel overly heavy to me.
Right.
And I mean, you can still put it on a bumper hitch, like one of the hitch haulers.
Yep.
You can still drive it up on one of those and have it, at the back of your pickup truck if you're not trailering, or obviously you can put it in the back of your truck. Yeah. And it fits inside the bed.
And unlike a traditional motorcycle, you could pull the batteries out if you wanted to lighten it up a little bit for like storage, or to put it in the back of your truck. You can just take the batteries out if you want. I think the batteries are like 24 pounds each.
So the Grunt, if you've got both batteries, is it 70 miles?
Yeah, we say up to 75 miles. But the thing that people need to understand about that is that's in explore mode, which is like the mode that we think people will use the most.
Yeah.
So pretty decent amount of power, and you could.
That's the middle of the road.
Middle of the road
setting.
If you were like a hypermiler, like those people used to be with Priuses or whatever, you wanted to like go as far as humanly possible, and you put it in stroll mode, I'm sure people will probably report back to us that they're getting well over 100 miles with 2 batteries. But that's going pretty slow.
Is that people our size?
Yeah, because I mean, again, the torque thing is really useful in getting the bike up to speed, and really what kills the battery is a lot of stopping and starting.
Okay.
So if you were to ride continuously for a couple hours in stroll mode, really the hardest part on the battery is getting you going. And then if you encounter some like really steep hills or whatever. But we've also integrated regenerative braking into the bike. So every time you roll off the throttle, if the battery is below 95% and you roll off the throttle, it begins to regenerate power.
Okay.
And that's really useful, especially in an off-road bike, because there is a lot of stopping and starting, speeding up, going down hills. In off-road riding, whereas like in a street bike, you ride consistent speeds a lot, and so it's not as useful in the street world.
Yeah,
but yeah, you can get a couple percentage points back on a regular ride with regenerative braking.
So these first ones are chain driven.
Yep.
And really, the only thing you can hear is the chain on the sprockets.
Yep.
As a rider, you can hear that, and it's like there's no engine noise. It literally, like if you could imagine spinning a chain around a chainsaw with your hand.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's all you can hear. Yeah.
That's all you can hear. And when someone leaves you and gets like probably 10 or 12 yards away, it's like not a sound that I can hear.
Right.
So for whitetail,
well, that's from the bass from your stereo system that you had when you were a kid.
Yeah.
But no, they are very quiet, and we know that that's a really important factor for people. So, a big focus for us in the future will be figure out how that chain noise, though it's minimal, we can continue to bring it down, and maybe work with audio engineers or something like that to figure out like what last little percentage point of sound can we reduce.
But it's not a sound that resonates.
Yeah,
one of the things that really surprised me, because I've written a lot of articles about, I really feel like you're better off, I call it a bump, but like for deer, if I'm hunting an area, especially a food source where everything's coming to me and then it's going to be there until it's dark, the last thing that I want to do is get out of that stand or that blind and have to like spook everything out of there. And now they're like, a person just came out of that thing.
Yeah.
So I always like do a bump, and a lot of times I'll call a friend or I'll call, Sharon, and I'll say, I'm going to be hunting here. Is there any way you can come in and get me at night? Like in some of my spots, it's even like I'm a little bit more picky where I say like, I don't hunt them a lot because I know how intrusive they are. Okay. And it leaves like, I'm going to blow a lot of deer onto the neighbors, but I also know that the deer are very accustomed to like farm equipment.
Oh, sure.
So there's certainly times where I'll get someone to come and actually get in my tractor and come and get me. Mm-hmm. Well, and normally I can hear the tractor pretty much from right when it starts up, and I'm probably a mile away from where it is, but like if it's cold at night, I can like hear it.
Yep.
And nothing will even pick its head up, like at all. Not going to happen.
Because the tractor equipment or the farm equipment's pretty well known.
I'll tell you what, last year, my tractor had a flat tire, and I just said, just jump in the side-by-side and come out. And so that thing started up, which I could hear. And again, I'm like a mile away.
Yeah.
And I mean, in a mile, like, if you can imagine like going through farmland and like, having to like be on little, tractor paths and, it's going to pass other food plots and like, ponds or bedding areas. Like it's, you're passing all that to like get into where I'm at.
Right.
Literally as soon as that thing starts driving the road, and then you can tell when it like slows down and then like turns into the farm, stuff was clearing the field.
Yeah.
Like it knew there is a four-wheeler coming, and at least my deer associated that type of like engine noise to like, that's not a tractor. That's, that's which crazy. I don't like buzz around on four-wheelers a lot of like at all on my place. If I drive around, it's either in my truck, which is quiet, or it's in the tractor. Like, like even if I have to go check cameras, I'll like be in my tractor. Mm-hmm. But for these, stuff looks at you like, what are you?
Yeah.
Which is the same look I get when I've ever pedaled my bike.
Yeah.
There's times where I've just like pedaled up to stuff, and like bucks will just like look at you like, what is this? Right. What is this? What is this? And then all of a sudden, like if they smell you, they know what it is. But for the most part, it's way, way, way less intrusive, which is why I just love E-Power.
Yep.
And I think for having something nimble enough, like this thing, I bought probably 6 or 7 years ago. I bought one of those like, those little pull behind brush cutters that go behind like a four-wheeler.
Oh, yeah.
And they cut like, I don't know if it's like 3 or 4 feet, but that's about as wide as it is. I usually use that like right prior to season, and I'll mow like a really clean, I'll make like several passes to really chop everything up. And that's what I ride my bikes on, is like a 4-foot path where it's really been mowed right down short.
Sure.
But it's not wide enough for a side-by-side. Right. You could probably do a four-wheeler, but it wouldn't be great.
Right.
I mean, the four-wheeler obviously is pulling the mower, but I'm also like kind of ducking a lot, and stuff's like hitting my arms and stuff. But on my bikes, 100% fine. Right. So for this, it's going to be money. Mm-hmm. Or like people that do a lot of shed hunting where they're covering a lot of ground. A lot of people shed hunt on dirt bikes.
Right.
But again, you're kind of making a racket, getting out there. So, actually the rancher where I was at last, I always stay there, and like like the rancher and all the ranch hands all have like dirt bikes.
Yeah.
And they, and like, if they've got to like buzz out to a field and like get that tractor and like take that piece of equipment over to there, they'll buzz out on the dirt bikes, and a lot of times they'll like put the dirt bike like in the bucket, and then they'll, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when they saw this thing, they flipped out.
Yeah.
Because it was instant torque, and it's really just fun to ride. Like you said, the wide tire,
like
it
makes a huge difference.
The fat tire effect like brings, like you said, nostalgia to it.
Yep. Yeah, and if you ever ride a motorcycle like in a sandy wash or something like that, it's really challenging with a standard width tire. But fat tires in sand are perfect, and you can air them down to 6 or 5 psi and kind of crawl over rocky stuff. And if you wanted to, you could bring a small pump and pump it back up a couple psi and take it back out on a Jeep road or something like that. So it's very versatile, and I think that, like you're saying, I think the key for us is just getting people to throw a leg over it and experience it. Just like a Tesla, you kind of don't know what it is until you experience it for the first time. And so we did a big nationwide tour this year leading up to the launch of the bike, and 10 stops, and met a ton of people. And the impression was always the same. People were like, I didn't really know what to expect until I got it on it and twisted the throttle a bit, and now I get it. So it's kind of one of those things where we just got to get people on the bike.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about it. And you guys, just to give a little background, they're from Austin. So obviously there's a lot of like e-power coming out of there. So that anytime you're in an area where there's that type of knowledge already floating around there, is really important. But you guys also just went public last week, which I didn't know about that. Which was pretty awesome. So now from a funding point of view, the brand is only going to get better. And it's my opinion, a lot of times, even with this, when the very first one, were you guys a startup? Did you do startup money?
Yeah, we had a couple different funding sources, but we did one crowdfunding round. It was a smaller round, but we did use that.
So, I mean, like when you did that, obviously now you've kind of got to a new step, but I feel like sometimes with brands like these, when you this is one of the few brands where I feel like I got in early enough, to where I think it's only going to get cooler. But I also think as the brand gets bigger, I also think the price will probably grow, which is going to be natural. But for our followers, it's like right now you can have a really cool vehicle that's like so much less than going and getting like a Polaris or something.
Totally. Yeah.
It's like, it's not even, for me, I see some of these ATV rides out there, and then I'll go and price them out and realize, well, I might as well just get a Jeep.
Yeah. They're pretty spendy.
I might as well get a car. But for this one, not that at all. It's probably equivalent to, it's not that much more than the highest end e-pedal bikes.
Oh yeah, if you went on Specialized website right now, a new S-Works is $15,000.
What the freak?
Really? They're really nice, but yeah. So the Vulcan Grunt's $79.95. That comes with one battery. That's about 35 miles range in Explore mode. You can put a second battery in there, which will get you up to 75 miles. And for $79.95 base price, I think that's really competitive with the kind of vehicle that you would consider for the type of thing that you do.
Can you even get could you get a WR for that?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
You might find some used stuff out there on the market, but and again, there's a lot of product benefits with electric that you may not get with a old used dirt bike. Just as an example, a motorcycle engine has 2,000-3,000 parts in it.
Yep.
And if one of those parts fails, the whole systems fail, right? So the little valve, a little spring on a valve fails, and it is catastrophic to the entire motor. And you go out and you buy a used motorcycle these days, and it's very hard to determine if the person broke it in the right way, changed the oil in the right what's it called? Intervals. And you just don't know. Buying a used motorcycle is like Russian roulette.
That's like buying a rental car.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Someone's
That's a really good way to put it.
I got it from Avis. Oh,
good luck. Yeah,
damn.
So you better flip it.
I rent from Avis.
Yeah, and so the great part about electric motorcycles and electric vehicles is they have far less moving parts, and the ability to diagnose an issue if one does arise through the electrical system. You know, we're going to be launching the Vulcan app here pretty soon, which syncs with your bike and can provide us feedback on problems you might be having, gives you an opportunity to update your firmware, that kind of thing. You know, we can diagnose bikes in the future, potentially just with your phone.
Jeez.
So there's a lot of benefits to it. And the price, I think the price is right. And the market's just going to continue to grow. So, yeah, I'm glad that we connected when we did because
this, I mean, it costs that much to get a golf cart right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, golf carts are crazy right now.
Yeah, yeah. I had golf carts. I had an electric cart and I had a gas cart, and the bike is a million times better.
Yeah.
I mean, they have limitation, don't have great suspension, and I mean,
they tip over constantly.
Yeah, but they also, like, if you just get, like, you know, you're just not going if it's wet at all.
Yeah.
If there's any type of an incline, like
right.
if it's anything more than a golf course, it's just not happening.
Right.
You know. And
what are you going to use? You're going to start hunting deer here soon.
Yep.
And you're going to on your property here. How are you going to use the bike in that process? Will you kill a deer and then go retrieve it?
No, I drive I've always pedaled an e-bike to every sit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So normally, you know, I'm probably going to ride anywhere from 400 yards to a mile, you know, every day in and out.
I see.
And, yeah, the other thing too, with e-powered equipment, there's no smell to it, which is massive.
Oh, yeah,
if you take, like, if I had, like, even when I took my golf cart, it was quiet enough to where it kind of just barely made a noise, because golf carts are pretty quiet, you know. It barely made a noise, but the problem is, like, you know, when you try to stash it, it's got like a roof on it, or even if it doesn't, I've had deer where, you know, the deer are like 200 yards downwind of it, and then they're like smelling it, because obviously it's still like burning some chemical off of it.
And deer have great ears too, right? I mean,
really good ears, nose, eyes. I mean, all of it's pretty dang good. But with like, I've killed a lot of deer where, you know, I've videoed, there's the deer on the ground, and then I pan right underneath my tree, and there's literally a bike laying on its side under my tree. Yeah, you know, and if you can stash it by a brush pile or something like that, or put it in some tall grass, and that's the other thing, like, out west, it's so dry this year that they're not running dirt bikes and stuff around because of fire, because of the fear of fire. Yep. So, like, even to be able to, like, drive out to a stand and lay an e-bike down in CRP and not, like, burn the freaking neighborhood down, is a huge selling point.
That's a good point. Yeah, I never really thought about that way.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff. And obviously, if you're out on public, you know, and you burn a freaking park down because you're, you know, which is kind of a big reason why some of the motorized, you know, motor powered or gas powered stuff isn't allowed, because it, you know, if you go out there and that thing's hot, I mean, have you seen side-by-sides start on fire? Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them start on fire. And, you know, a lot of times it's just from the dry grass that's getting underneath, you know, underneath that engine compartment.
Yeah, and then some, like, little piece of plastic starts melting, and then the whole thing just toast.
Then it's toast. So, yeah, just from that point of view, it's awesome. But I wanted people to be able to know. I know that obviously you've done an awesome job of, like, bringing me in the loop of telling me everything that's being done. And every time I've said, like, hey, it'd be cool if maybe you had this, you're like, yeah, you know, we got that feedback, we're working on it, so you guys are really good. And I think I kind of know from a distribution channel what your long-term goal is, and I think it's going to be cool if people get in early, and I think it's going to make a difference for sure. It's an awesome product. I was really pumped, you know, when I first saw it. I thought it would be much smaller, and then once I got on it, it's like, you know, Harry freaking likes to drive it around. Like, I haven't been able to show it, but lazily, like I drive it to my 100-yard target and back.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I was actually really nervous when I went to that Black Rifle camp or that thing down in San Antonio. Cause I was like, I just wasn't sure how it would be received. We'd been so quiet about it. Like hadn't put too many people on it yet. And the reception for it was really good. Like everybody there was really fired up about it. So that was a big relief for me.
It's a cool product, man. Yeah. And from what I've seen, when the side-by-sides come out, they're going to be awesome, but they're not going to have, I mean, they have a place. Yeah. And for me, something small and agile, like you could take this thing in, there's a little trailer for it. Or if you honestly, like if you take an actual, like, a full-size backpack, like more like a pack-in type backpack, to where, for me, when I go in, you can put a tree stand, some pegs, you can have your bow, you can have all that stuff in one pack. Yeah. You wouldn't even need to have a pull behind. You can just go in and totally do it. Yeah.
The one thing that we're working on right now that I'm not sure when it'll be complete is just a single wheel, really small collapsible trailer. Mm-hmm. So the idea is like something that you could potentially fold up and carry, but you could also put a deer on. Yeah. That maybe is small enough to just strap to the back of the bike and then unfold later. So we have a bunch of accessories and stuff like that in the works. But I think that now that we're starting to ship bikes and people are starting to receive them, we'll probably have all sorts of accessory ideas that we never thought of.
It's taken off now, and if you want to be one of the first ones in, then you're gonna need to find it. But it's a Volcon, VOLCON.
That's right.
Not the skater brand.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
There it is, right there. And that's it. That's a grunt.
Yep. Fat tire bike.
Awesome. Cool, dude. Well, Chris, it was fun. I'm glad you got to tell me some stories. Yeah. A lot of times when I meet people for the first time, which you and I have known each other like 9 months now, sometimes I feel like, am I being rude, not asking them about themselves too much? But when I know that at some point you're coming, I like...
You want to save the stories?
Honestly, yeah. Podcast, It was really hard with Gracie being here, because I'm like, if we just go in and podcast and start talking, I know that like the listeners are going to benefit. Yeah. But I also know that he's not going to be able to talk about like how archery has changed since he's been here. Yeah. So there's this weird parallax. And then there's the thing of like, I let him talk about something, but I like, as much as I want to ask questions, I'm like, try to remember that. Yeah. Try to remember that.
It's funny, like probably every other Rogan episode, he's like, the first thing he says is like, oh, we were just talking before the show and we had to start, we had to hit record. You always wonder like, oh, what were they saying back there?
Dude, that is literally 90% of the times where, I'm at a hunting camp and, a lot of the friends that I have are all together and we're all hanging out, and then an hour, 2 hours go by and everybody says, that would have been the awesomest podcast. Yeah. Right. And I don't know. I feel like if I can get a podcast out every week, that's like fair to everybody else. But I also, hopefully people realize that there's some people that come here that are friends, and it's like, it's almost like you don't keep it a friendship when you say, hey, we need to podcast, or hey, we need to post, or hey, you kind of have to draw the line and just say, man, let's just hang out.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to navigate these days. I hate it, but it's necessary evil, especially if you're a marketer. You gotta keep that stuff going, even though I don't love it all the time.
Awesome. Well, thanks, dude. Appreciate it very much.
Appreciate you.
And I look forward to everyone seeing one of these things. They're freaking cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Be sure to check out knockonarchery.com for our full line of custom designed products, as well as free in-depth education and bow hunting entertainment to help you shoot at your best.